So over the past 2 or 3 years of shooting with Sony, my widest autofocus lens was always the 24mm 1.4 G Master lens from Sony, and it's been great. I love it. For my work, I don't really use ultra wide angles. That's why I stick with 24, 50, and 90, 85, whatever I need for telephoto lenses. But recently, since travel has resumed, I kind of wanted something wider, and this came along. This is the Viltrox 16mm f1.8 with autofocus actually, and a lot of features on it with this little screen on top. I don't know, it's a kind of more modern lens, and it kind of rivals a G Master lens. And if you're wondering how wide it's gonna look compared to 24mm, let's try it out right now. This 24mm has been super amazing for my work and for my use case, but recently I've been traveling to East Asia a lot, and that space is a little bit limited. And I feel like the 16mm for Viltrox is going to be really useful for travels. Now, I've always wanted to get the 16-35 G Master, but it's just a little bit too expensive and it's too big. For travels, I'd rather much prefer lightweight lenses, which are mostly primes, and fast lenses as well for those low light shots. We're gonna take this Viltrox 16mm for our travels. Here we go.
Leave me washed out, not a bad thing. Need a self-drought, then a new spring. Far from the shore, far from old me. Parted my core, like the Red Sea. I've been beat down, questioned, been ashamed. I've been trying to change myself.
All right, quick tech specs of this lens. Aperture goes wide open at f1.8 all the way down to f22 with a 9-blade aperture. It has a declickable iris ring similar to the Sony G Masters, and it has a lot of custom buttons. It also has this little screen on top that says your focus distance if you're on autofocus or manual focus, and it showcases your aperture as well. And the minimum focus distance from the sensor is at 27 centimeters, and it's about something like this far. Now this one has a 77mm filter thread. I suggest getting an 82mm filters so that you just have one filter for all of your cameras. You just need to adapt the smaller diameters for the other lenses that you might have. This weighs 550 grams with the price of $549 for a full frame lens. That's almost $1 per gram. During the daytime, I have no issues with this lens. Sometimes there's a little bit of hunting at 1.8, but it's a non-issue since during the daytime you barely go 1.8. But the overall performance, it's blazing fast. It's always tracking on the eye, especially if that is on your Sony cameras. So far, the autofocus is very reliable, especially for the price range of a third-party lens. I was already amazed by their 50mm for their full frame. That has also a blazing fast autofocus system. Now for the normal low light scenes, it still tracks the eye pretty well. It's still fast. Obviously, if there's almost no light in your scene, it's gonna hunt. So just keep that in mind, but overall it's still pretty good, especially if you light your scenes properly. To be honest, for the price, this is a very well-built lens. And it also has weather sealing, and it has the little rubber gasket in between the lens mount and the lens itself. And that's pretty good, so that no humidity comes in or moisture, whatever dust particles to your sensor. And for a budget lens, that's a really good addition. I don't know how some third party don't have a simple rubber gasket. I would assume it's cheap to produce or add onto it, but it's very well appreciated with this budget lens. I threw this into a camera bag, into a tote bag in Thailand, and I don't see any scratches. I would say just the custom buttons, the function 1 and function 2, are a little cheap feeling on these ones, but I have no complaints. At 16 millimeters, you expect to have it like very minimal focus breathing, and this doesn't disappoint. Here's a test for 1.8, for f8, and also for f22. Now, if you're wondering about photography, I did take a lot of photos in Thailand, and here's some of what I've captured. So far for a travel wide angle lens, I'll give this a big thumbs up. Now for my favorite part, low light. Now since this is an f1.8 lens, you can put more light in, especially in these low light scenes. Now my favorite shot, and it's such a random shot that I took, it was like right after blue hour, and it's this straight on shot of the 7-Eleven in Thailand. And honestly, it captured it really, really good. Again, these are just random shots that I've taken and they look amazing. Now the car scene as well, that's in pure low light scene. All those shots that are f1.8 tracked my eye pretty good, and that is just ambient lighting, street lighting that was lighting me when I was driving, nothing else. So yeah, this lens is pretty good in low light scenes. Let's talk about distortion, and I think this lens doesn't disappoint as well, because usually if you are looking at a third-party budget wide-angle lens, there's a prominent barrel distortion. That means that the corner is curving. It becomes like a fisheye look. You just want a really precise wide angle. And for me, that quality is coming from G Master lenses. My 24mm wide angle lens, and even at the 16mm, barely has any distortion on the corners. And now with this Viltrox lens, it performs really good. Aside from the wide angle compression, you can see that on the corners, the lines are still straight, and that you can just see a little bit of a barrel distortion, maybe on the top of the image, but it's barely noticeable. You can just crop in a little bit so that you get rid of it if you truly don't want it. I feel like this is going to be good for real estate photography, videography, architecture, anything that requires precision on that wide angle end. This is the way to go. Now the bokeh on this thing is pretty smooth, but yeah, you're not gonna get those big bokeh circle things in the background if you're shooting wide open at 16mm. You're gonna see those most likely for 85mm, those like mid-range telephoto lenses. And that if you're in the low light scene at 1.8, you can still see a little bit of those little bokeh balls, but so far it's pleasing. I don't have any concerns. Like for a wide angle, you're not gonna go like super close up and have those really pleasing soft backgrounds, but sometimes you might need it for certain specific shots, and you can do that with this lens. All right, let's talk about the feature that they added that's supposed to be super cool, which is the screen on the top. Honestly, I don't care for it. I didn't even look at it when I was shooting in Thailand at all. But on the other hand, I think it's a really cool feature. It does show you your focusing distance, where let's just say you're pulling focus and you need that exact precision, let's say a product shoot, you might use this and it could be really helpful. But honestly, if you're just shooting out and about and you're traveling, you don't have time to look at the screen on top. Now, another cool thing about this lens is the custom buttons. The F2 actually acts as your own little focus puller, and that you can actually set A and B focus points for your precision work. And And that's gonna do it for the Viltrox 16mm f1.8, and it's about $549. And for a budget wide angle, I feel like this is really good, especially for all the tech, and it really is kind of like a budget version of a G Master lens with cool quality. Now, I don't know about longevity. I've only had this for about a month. I definitely recommend this lens to everyone who's looking for a wide angle, fast prime lens. This is the way to go, especially if you're on a budget. There's no other selections on it. The Sony one is 14mm, the Sigma one is 14mm as well. This is so far the only 16mm at 1.8. Correct me if I'm wrong because I just did a quick Google search. And as usual, I'm giving away my Sunset Film Mod pack, and all you have to do to win is comment down below what are your thoughts about this 16mm f1.8 that looks like a G Master from Viltrox. If you want to watch another video of mine, click on this video right here. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
너와 나